We're starting super soon on this other one.
Why are you whispering? No one's here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Love Conversations. We are no longer doing parts because the point of these is to do them a lot. So
who's gonna remember?
We have forgotten which part we are on. But the topic for tonight is Table for One. Essentially just kind of talking on the topic of singleness, which is something new. We haven't talked about singleness yet up until this point. We've talked a lot about relationships that can be applied to those who are single, but maybe not, in specifically singleness. So we are glad that you're here. We hope tonight will be a blessing for you. And we want to begin again with our questions. The first question that we have, Jamil, what is your favorite In Your Fields song?
In My Fields song.
Yeah. And if you are here either on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, put it in the chat. What is your favorite In Your Fields song?
Honestly, when I think about a summer where I was really listening to songs just to get in my feels, it'd probably be Talking to the Moon by Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
Probably that one. That one just
that one made a comeback too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did.
Big now on TikTok and stuff. But I was listening to it way before TikTok existed.
Okay. So all right. So are you dating yourself or are you trying to be cool?
That was my song. No, I'm just saying I have good taste in music.
Okay. All right. So you would listen to this and you would kind of howl,
Yeah, I just imagined that I was talking to the moon, to somebody far away.
But you made it out.
I made it.
You made it out. Praise the Lord.
I made it out, man.
Okay.
Question for you. When is a time where you felt alone?
A time I felt alone?
Time you felt alone.
Okay, I'm going to go with the lighter answer here just because we're going to get deep later anyway, where I'm going to blast myself. So I'm going to blast my dad because I remember a time that I felt alone. My mom was out. She used to take teens, she was a youth group leader, and she would take them back to their houses. She would drive them back and give them all a ride home. And so my dad was supposed to stay with me at the house, and he had to do this pastoral thing. And he was like, well, your mom will be right back. So he left me. I was 5 years old, right? 5 years old. And so he left me at the house. And at first it was fine. He, left VeggieTales right on for me. It was in the VCR VeggieTales. I had rewind it.
I thought you were saying he left like a VeggieTale.
Hopped off.
He hopped out of the house.
No, he left me with the VeggieTales on. 5 years old, okay, by myself. And my mom, she actually took forever to get home because there was this huge thunderstorm. So the power went out. I remember being in the bathroom and the lights just went out. And I was like, bro, I barely was potty trained 2 years ago. I can't do this without light. I don't understand. And I hid under the bed. I remember answering the phone and they're like, hi, is your mom there? And I was like, no. And they're like, your dad? No. And they're like, okay, bye. And I was like, this person doesn't care that I've been left alone. So I, to this day, make fun of my dad. And, when I need something, I just bring it up conveniently. Oh no, you can't help me out with that. Well, remember that time when I was 5 and you left me by myself? Yeah. So that's the time I felt alone. Okay, let's transition into our topic. What was the hardest thing for you about being single?
Okay, well, we're just going to be honest for you guys right now. Let's get this out of the way. Let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room. For me, you would agree too, right? We are not professionals in being single.
Right. Well,
because,
obviously.
Yeah, we've been in relationships we've also, in our relationship, we've been in a relationship for a long time.
Yeah.
But I think
together, 8 years. So.
Yeah, I think for me, the hardest thing about singleness was not feeling desired or wanted.
That's deep.
I would say that's probably something about singleness that's one of the toughest parts.
Yeah. It's just not being desired or wanted, which is interesting. That's interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about our stories. So I feel like that's an interesting topic. I think the hardest thing for me about being single was that I had all of this love that I wanted to give somebody, and I couldn't give it. Like I could give it to my friends and stuff, but it just wasn't the same. And like I knew like I was born to be in a relationship. Like I was born to love somebody well. I saw it in my parents, and I really wanted to have like a godly relationship, but I was trying to manifest it, and it always like it didn't meet my expectations every single time, except for you. But like before, it was always like, oh, this is it, like this is where I'm gonna pour out all my love. And then, you know, a couple months went by, and I was like, man, like this is horrible. So yeah, that was the hardest thing for me. It's like I really wanted something, and I knew like I was born for it, but it just wasn't happening. So Jamil has already mentioned it, and I think it's important to claim, because if you're watching this and you're single, you're probably thinking like, what do you guys have to say to me who's been single for this many years? Exactly. And you guys, after you end this podcast, are going to go cuddle in bed together. You know, like, what do you have to say to me? All right. And hey,
I don't know if they're thinking that, but yeah, but I mean.
Okay, well, that's what we're going to do after this. So and here's the thing is, you're right. Like we've been out of the game for a long time. So like, we're not here to resonate with, hey, we understand how you're feeling because we feel that, right? But we are here to say we were at one point in your shoes, right? And there were things that we learned during our singleness that we want to share with you so that you don't repeat the same mistakes, or that you can have success in a healthy single life, right? So we always want to start with our basis with our Bible. And so what does the Bible have to tell us about singleness? What does the Bible say?
All right, so if you can turn with me to Proverbs chapter 3. Proverbs chapter 3. We're going to read verses 5 through verse 8. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through verse 8. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes."
Mercy.
"Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones."
Man, okay, there's so much there. This is coming from the wisest man to ever live, even though he was super foolish, right? Which is so crazy because his relationships are all over the place, 500 wives. I mean, man, but there's some gold in there, right? So it's like, lean not on your own understanding, right? Don't be wise in your eyes, in your own eyes, but rather fear the Lord, right? And run from evil. And the result of that will be healing for your body, right? Healing for your bones. So Jamil, a couple weeks ago, the last time we did a love potluck, you said this thing, and I just need to bring it back, right? Because it was we didn't plan it. I was like floored. I was sitting there and I was like, what did he just speak right now? Like, that is a word. Your phrase was, your yes is your mess. That's what you said. Your yes is your mess. So can you go back and reiterate that? Like, let's revisit that for those who are just joining us or maybe have forgotten. What does that even mean? Your yes is your mess.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about myself, and God was like, yeah, like this describes you. When I get frustrated.
The rebukes, man, the rebukes.
Yeah, like I would get frustrated with God about things that I made a conscious decision to do on my own. Like God didn't manifest those things. I just made the decision, like, I'm going to do this because I need to do this. Like, this is going to be good for me. And God's like, okay, like you didn't ask me, but go ahead.
You went in your own understanding.
I went in my own understanding. And then when it blew up in my face, I was upset at God. And God's like,
what did I do, bro? You didn't even ask.
Like, I don't understand, you know? So yeah, that's what I think of when I think of your yes is your mess. Like, if you're going to do something, if you're going to make a decision to follow your own will, to do what's right in your eyes, then the mess that we find ourselves in, that's on us. Because we were the ones that did it, not God.
How many times do we see that in the Bible?
There are a lot of times.
So many times.
A lot of times, man. Especially with Abram and Sarai, bro.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Bro, that's like a perfect example of your yes is your mess.
Yeah, she said, sure. Yes, sleep with my servant.
Yeah.
And the mess was the result of that.
Exactly. Sleeping with her servant. That was the mess.
What can we say?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and here's the thing is that this is something that we all identify with, right? Jamil, especially me. If you know me at all, like I'm a very passionate individual. I'm very feelings driven. Like I'm an ENF
Yeah, like capital.
F
Yeah, like
J. Okay. Like I was watching Frozen earlier today while folding clothes, and like Elsa's like crying, so I'm crying with her simply because the cartoon is crying. Like I am F all the way. Yeah, it was upstairs. It's like I was like, man, like she's the person she's been waiting for her whole life. And I just teared up. Anyway, so I am an F all the way, right? So like I will often lead with my heart. I will often lead with my heart. And when I was younger and single, I mean, that was, oh, man, I think the Lord just really spared me because I got myself in some trouble.
So you have some your mess stories?
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So many.
Share with the people. Bro.
High school Vanessa was just mess all the time. Like this is what I would do. Okay, this is what I would do. So I would develop feelings for this person, and then I would imagine in my mind how perfect the relationship would be, and it would often go, this person is broken. I am whole. I can give this person everything that they need. Like I can show them what it's like to have a solid family. I can show them what it's like to have a deep relationship with Jesus, even though I was totally just surfing at the time.
So you're God's gift to humanity.
Oh my gosh. But you know what? And I tried to do it in like a humble way. Like I was like, I'm going to bring God's light into their life. Like I'm going to be a missionary for God. But I also get to be with this person that's super cute, right? So that was me. And I would literally bring this relationship, because of course, like, you know, I've always wanted God's wisdom and guidance, right? But I was doing what was wise in my own eyes, right? And it ended up being hurt instead of healing. And I would bring it to God and say, yo, dude, isn't that person great? Yeah, they have this, and this. So like, I'm gonna date him. You cool with that? Yo, thanks. I knew I could get your blessing. Yeah. Didn't even wait for his reply, right? But it was more like, I'm presenting this to you and I would really like your blessing. Mm-hmm. Versus like, hey, is this something that you want me to get myself into? You know, leading with prayer. Instead of, I'm already invested in this person, so like whatever you say, I'm still going to do what I'm going to do, but just for the sake of saying I did it because I'm a Christian. Like, here's my prayer. So that was all the time. Literally all the time. But what about you, Jamil? Like, what was your single life like? Because I only met you senior year. So I got stories, but I didn't get, to experience you really.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around the block a little bit, like a few times.
A few times?
Probably like talked to like 4 people.
Okay, let's multiply that by 3 and we're getting closer.
I didn't talk to like 12.
We have decided, we've told you guys that these are going to be authentic, truthful, very frank conversations. Like we're not beating around the bush. So we're going to be honest, right? Jamil, you're going to be honest about the people that you talk to, right?
Maybe like more than 12. Maybe I talk to more than 12 people, right?
A handful more than 12, and then we're getting pretty close.
Yeah. Okay, okay. 18. Vanessa just wants me to tell all of you guys that we counted this. I was impressed.
I was like, wow, like you talk to that many girls. Like I can't imagine that would stress me out because I was always like very focused with one. Like I said, I'm a very impassioned person.
Yeah, I think that was the difference between you and I, though, because you wanted like real relationships. Yeah, like I just didn't like the feeling of being alone. I didn't feel wanted or desired.
Okay, so now we're getting to it. So you were the single that I was a single that I wanted to fix people.
Yeah. Right? I wasn't thinking about fixing people at all. I was like, I just don't want to be alone, so I don't have to be alone if I'm talking to somebody at the time.
So do you think that's why you talked to somebody? Because you wouldn't really get super serious with them. No. Maybe emotional connection. You really liked emotional connection. Conversations, texting, that kind of thing. Yeah. But you weren't do you think that's the reason why you went from, somebody girl to girl to girl?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it filled some desire of, like I already said before, like feeling wanted. And like there's the chase, like the chase is really exciting. But a lot of times, once like the chase is over, then you just realize like, okay, like this is nice, but maybe we don't have as much in common as I thought we did. And then, man, this makes me sound like a really bad person.
Redeemed and restored. It's okay. Redeemed and restored. That is the BC, Jamil. We got after.
Yeah, it's like you see something that you don't like, and because you're not dating yet, then it's easier to leave. Because there's not really
there's nothing holding you down.
Yeah, there's nothing holding you down or anything.
So
I think that's why the number's probably higher.
Yeah.
I didn't date 18 people.
Right.
So that's clear.
Yeah.
Out there.
Yeah.
Just like talking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happened like in between girls, right? Because like 18 and 4 years, that's pretty like one. I'm not saying it to make you feel bad, but I'm really wondering like, okay, so like what was the thought process in between girl A and B?
Okay. Well, I think some people know this, maybe not a lot of people, but in my life, I've had like dads in and out of my life. So that kind of made me feel like, I don't know, I wasn't special or like memorable or wanted, because if I was wanted, then they wouldn't have left. So I tried to find that in other places. So I wanted to find it in like, well, like at least I'm wanted by this person. At least I'm wanted by this person. But in between the girls, there was one person that I was really close to that I always felt like I was going to end up like coming back to in the end. There was like this one person that there was always this kind of like, I don't know, how would you describe it? This electricity?
This chemistry.
And this electricity that we had.
We're friends, but are we?
Exactly. Like, are we friends? We're friends, but are we
We're
really
friends, but we could not be friends like this.
Exactly. So like I would see the other people. My mom would call them projects, actually. She would say, oh man, like this is project 2. This is project 4.
That's so bad.
Yeah, like she like wouldn't even like call them by their names. She just called them projects. But there was one girl that in between I would consider like, man, like should we have something serious?
She was always kind of like your fallback.
Yeah, I don't even know if fallback is the word. Maybe more so like
the inevitable.
Yeah, the inevitable. And I wanted to be in a relationship with this girl, but I didn't necessarily have like the courage to really say what I wanted. And it wasn't easy, Like it wasn't easy. And for her, she would change her mind all the time. So sometimes we were friends, sometimes we were more than friends. Sometimes we were friends, sometimes we were more than friends. Yeah. So that was kind of like the in-between, kind of. It wasn't the healthiest.
Right. Okay. So here's the layout that we're seeing. So I'm the person where I want to fix people, right? And I would give God my plan and be like, bless it. Thank you very much. Stamp of approval. And then when it would blow up in my face, I'd be like, but I thought you blessed it. You were that person that being alone was not an option, right? Because you didn't feel desirable. You didn't feel wanted, right? Loneliness for you was like the enemy, right? Because in that you were faced with the reality that you didn't like yourself and other people didn't like you. Yeah. Or you felt that way.
Yeah, it's a nice escape, if that makes any sense. A lot of times we can just get into relationships just to escape facing ourselves.
Well, it was like that. Do you date so many other people you never get to date yourself?
Yeah. You date so many other people you never get to date yourself. So you know nothing about yourself. You don't even necessarily know what you want. Some people say, yeah, like I date to find out what I want. But I was actually just talking to a friend of mine. I was training her, and like she was telling me when she realized for the first time what she actually wanted was when she was single. Yeah. Every time she was in relationships, she thought, oh, I'm figuring out what I want. But it wasn't until she had like a year or longer by herself when she actually realized, wow, like this is actually what I want. This is what kind of person I am. I've been adapting to the person that I'm with all the time. And for me, that's something I can resonate with. Yeah. How do you truly know who you are if you change yourself every time you're talking to a new person? So then when you're by yourself, you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. So I think it's really, a lot of people may find themselves craving relationships or getting in relationships because it's really hard to face yourself.
Yeah. They don't like themselves. They like themselves when somebody else likes them.
Exactly.
Because it's like, oh, maybe they see something in me that I don't see in myself.
Exactly, which is why singleness could be really hard, because if you don't like yourself and then in your mind the world is showing you that they don't like you either, then like why would you be happy? Like why would you be joyful if you don't like yourself and you feel like other people don't like you? So for some people, they can not like themselves, but at least they can get through the night, they can get through the day because they know, oh, well, like so and so likes me though.
I think then that's why Jesus, when he says do unto others that you would have them do unto you, there's two sides of that, right? So there's a sense of like, hey, you're a prideful person, like treat others with the same kind of, splendor or whatever that you would expect for yourself. But also it talks with the people for low self-esteem of like, you can't authentically love other people if you don't learn how to love yourself with the kind of love that Jesus has to give. And there's this book that I love, and I read it a couple of years ago, and it's not a Christian book, but there was this line, it's like, you accept the love you think you deserve, right? So it plays on that same thing of like, okay, this is acceptable, whatever it is, whether it's an abusive relationship or just, an unhealthy relationship, toxic in different ways, like even if it's a regular relationship, right, where there's no spiritual depth, but you're just in it because both of you guys are lonely. Like that's the love you think you deserve, and so I think even for me, I was willing to accept people that I would make excuses for, right? So I would say like, oh no, like they have the potential to be what I think that they could be, in my mind saying, I'm gonna just make them be that person. It's just so bad. Oh my word, you guys, pray for me. But for you, do you think that affected, your relationship, maybe even coming back to that, like the inevitable, what we called? Do you think that was something that influenced that fallback of like, hey, like if this doesn't work out, like the inevitable is going to happen? Like, was that a healthy relationship? That was something that...
Yeah, I think it was an unhealthy relationship, but I didn't think that I deserved better.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think she, deserved different things as well. But I guess for me, I struggled trying to understand like why she couldn't just decide like what she wanted. I always felt like things were up in the air. So, one day I was someone that she wanted to be more than friends with. And then the other day, like, it was like, oh yeah, like, that's just Jamil. So it was kind of stressful.
Right.
Yeah, it was kind of stressful. But for me, I was like, yeah, there's not much better than this though. So I would rather, like your dad says, the dysfunction that I know, than the healing that I don't. So wow. I wasn't really thinking about exactly what this verse is saying, like refreshment to your bones. I wasn't really even wanting my bones to be refreshed because I got so comfortable in my own desires, and in things that, I saw with my own eyes. I feel like this girl is probably the best I'll be able to do, so like I was not doing much better than, what this girl is. So I've had to learn. And I didn't even know you existed yet. Me
neither.
That was a blessing for sure.
But once I remember the night that I realized like I love Jamil, and it was really early. I was, like I said, like feeling driven, right? But I was like, no, but this one's different. Like I remember coming before God and saying like, I've never met anyone like Jamil before. And like, I really, and this was the first and the last time, the only time that I actually put my next step before God, before I made it. Okay. I actually gave him the option to tell me where to go. Whether or not I would have obeyed, I can't tell you that. I'm just going to go with probably not. Okay. And I would have been hurt and whatever, but God was gracious in knowing I know her character, like I know her tendencies, right? And so I'm not going to give her more than she can handle, right? And that's the Bible says that God is faithful in temptation, right? We're not going to be given more than we can handle. And so I said, God, like, do you want me to be with Jamil? I need to know, because if not, you need to tell me right now, because if you don't, I'm going to be out of your will for a really long time because I already saw a future with you that I was like, I'm going to be with this dude longer than I've been with anybody else. Like, he's just so different. But God was gracious and was like, and he said yes. Like, he told me, go ahead. He gave me peace. The next, I think that I was praying for a sign that night and I saw that sign come true. I just felt solid. Like, I didn't feel like, oh, like, I know it's, when you would like Jonah, right? He knew like, okay, I'm running from God. Like, it's this sense of like, God is here and I'm not in his will. Like, I knew I was in his will for you. So my question for you is, there are people who are watching, right? And I say this in faith, that are either on one maybe identify with us, right? Where they're like, yo, that's me. Like, I let my passions speak for me, and then I make decisions, and I do first ask permission later, right? Yeah. But I think that there are a lot of people like you too, right? That there's the hardest thing about singleness is just the loneliness that they feel because they don't like themselves, or they find validation in other people. In like, if their DMs aren't blowing up, like they're not worth anything, or like they're not desirable. So how do we prevent loneliness from being a reason why we get into relationships?
Yeah, I think it comes down to value. Knowing your value, and knowing that you're not going to be valuable because someone finds you attractive. You're valuable because you're a child of God. Mm-hmm.
It sounds simple, but it's harder than it sounds, right?
Yeah, just period. It sounds really straightforward. Mm-hmm. But for me, like, I'm married and I'm still trying to accept the fact that I'm valuable, not for what I do. Mm-hmm. I know we're not talking about attraction level anymore necessarily, but like, just from,
you still got it though.
Yeah, just from what you do, a lot of people, in their careers and stuff like that, they're still trying to prove that they're valuable. Not even just talking about singleness, just in their careers. Yeah. So again, being single, I think something that is really going to help you in not struggling with loneliness as much, is, again, finding that value, and also realizing that just because you're single doesn't mean that you have to be alone. For example, my mom is single. However,
been that way for a while, yeah.
She's been that way for a long time. However, my mom is not alone.
No.
She is never alone. My mom is probably one of the most social, like, people that I know, even though she tells me, like, yeah, I'm an introvert. I just turn on the extra. I'm like, Mom, you're on crack. There's no way. There's no way you're an introvert. There's no way. Funny. She is so good. Like, she should be a small group leader or something like that.
Yeah, like, she would be so good at it.
Or spokesman or something like that. Because my mom has this gift, even though she is single, of meeting friends and those friends becoming family within like 1 or 2 weeks. I don't know how she does it, but she just does. Like, she has a real gift for creating community, even though she's single. And I think we'll put things in boxes like, well, if I'm single, then naturally that means that I'm alone. It's like, no, like, you don't have to be alone. You don't have to be alone. I mean, we've lived next to people, like neighbors and stuff like that. Both of the neighbors are divorced, but they're best friends. They're always together. They're always going on camping trips. They're always going, on different trips and stuff like that. Like, literally, like, they're best friends, but they're both single. So just because you're single doesn't mean that you have to be alone. So I'd say my 2 things: finding your value outside of someone finding you attractive. And realizing that just because you're single doesn't mean that you have to be alone. Be a Linnell calendar, like my mom. Like, that is what I would say. She's great at that.
Yeah, that's so important, because I think it's often like you should get excited about dating Jesus, or like love yourself, like become your best friend. But there's something about that doesn't ring true in scripture, because you see that, like, Adam and God have established this relationship, and still God says it's not good for Adam to be alone. And so in that context, you see him being given a spouse, but you see later, right, in the New Testament, how people like Paul don't have a spouse, but have community. Exactly. So the overlying aspect, the thing that is paralleled, is not necessarily romantic relationships, because I don't know if we can say that God guarantees a spouse. I think that he loves marriage, and that is a great way to show covenant love.
And I believe God gives good gifts.
Exactly. And it's a wonderful gift, but it shouldn't be something that we believe is required of like God, right? So, but what is essential to our makeup as human beings is community. So finding that community is so essential. And listen, I want to just tell that person that they're like, yeah, like I hear what you're saying. You know, I'm gonna work on the community. I'm gonna get into small group. I'm gonna reach out to coworkers. I'm gonna pray for intentional friendship. But like, I was born to be in a relationship. Like, I just know, like, there's someone out there that I'm gonna love and love well. Know that that is okay. Like, you shouldn't ever feel bad about wanting to be in a relationship.
Yeah, never.
Yeah, you should rethink when you feel like you need to be in a relationship, because then it's idolatry. Right? You're putting something in the place of God where you can't be alone. You can't be by yourself because you need this thing. You're codependent on it. Right? So that's where it becomes unhealthy. But we should never feel upset or sad, or no one should ever make you feel shamed or shameful because of the fact that you're like, you know what? I really want to be in a romantic relationship. So that's it for today. I mean, like we said, we're not pros, but I just want to read this verse one more time for you guys, because the best thing we can give you is what the Bible has to say. So if you're in this place right now where you're unsure of like, hey, like, I think I should be getting this relationship, but I'm not quite sure. What do I do? Where do I go? The word says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, right? Do you trust God? If he says yes, or he says no, that he's going to see it through? And do not lean on your own understanding. So we're praying for elevated view, right? God's bird's eye view. In all your ways, acknowledge him. So before we take a step, we say, God, is this the step that you want me to take? And he will make your path straight. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Thank you guys for being with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this Love Potluck. Leave some feedback. We want to hear from you. And if there's a topic that we haven't covered and you want to hear from, then we'll be happy to take those suggestions as well. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.